If you think the best investment in 2026 is crypto or stocks, you might be missing something important, because right now, something very unusual is happening in the car market. For years, cars were never seen as investments. You buy them, and they lose value. That's just how it worked. But that's no longer always true, because the industry has changed. Modern cars are becoming more complex, more expensive to maintain, and in many cases less reliable long-term. At the same time, older cars, especially the well-built ones, are becoming harder to find. And when something becomes rare and desirable, it starts to go up in value. We're now at a point where certain cars are no longer just transportation, they're assets. But here's the problem most people still don't understand. Which cars actually make sense to buy? Some cars look like a good deal, but turn into a financial mistake. Some cars feel exciting, but lose value fast, and some cars become expensive liabilities. But a few cars sit in a very unique position. They're reliable, they're desirable, and they're starting to get recognized. So in this video, I'm going to show you 4 cars that make real sense to buy in 2026, not just as cars, but as smart long-term decisions. 4. Honda S2000. Let's start with something that already has a strong reputation but still hasn't fully peaked in value. The Honda S2000 is one of those cars that represents a completely different era of engineering. It's powered by the F20C engine. And what makes this engine special is not just reliability, it's how it delivers power. It revs incredibly high, it's naturally aspirated, and it was designed with performance and durability in mind. And that combination is extremely rare today. Modern engines are smaller, turbocharged, and more efficient, but they don't feel the same. The S2000 feels mechanical. It feels alive. And that's exactly why people are starting to appreciate it more. From an investment perspective, this is important because cars that offer a unique driving experience, something that can't be replicated anymore, tend to hold value and eventually increase. Now, in terms of ownership, the S2000 is actually quite strong. The engine itself is very reliable if you maintain it properly. It was built to handle high RPM use, which means it doesn't feel fragile like some performance engines. But of course, like any older sports car, there are things to watch for. You may deal with wear on the soft toppaging suspension, components minor oil consumption depending on maintenance history, and because it's a sports car, parts and upkeep can be slightly more expensive than a typical daily car. But here's the key point, the fundamentals are strong, and demand for this type of car is only going up. It's one of those cars that people buy and later wish they had never sold. 3. Lexus LS430. Now let's go in the opposite direction, because not every good investment needs to be exciting. The Lexus LS430 is one of the best examples of quiet, intelligent car buying. This car is powered by the 3UZ FEV8, and this engine has built a reputation over decades for being incredibly durable. We're talking about engines that can run for hundreds of thousands of miles without major internal issues, as long as basic maintenance is done. And that's where the value comes from, because reliability is becoming rare. Modern luxury cars are full of technology, but that technology often comes at the cost of long-term durability. The LS430 comes from a time when the focus was different. It was built to last. The interior quality, the ride comfort, the way the car feels on the road, everything about it feels solid and over-engineered. And right now, it's still undervalued. A lot of people overlook this car because it doesn't look aggressive or modern, but the people who understand cars are starting to notice. And when that happens, prices slowly begin to rise. Now, ownership is not completely perfect. You may encounter aging electronics air suspension issues on certain model share fuel consumption. But again, these are secondary issues. The engine and transmission are extremely strong. This is the type of car that doesn't attract attention, but quietly becomes more valuable over time. 2. Porsche Cayman 987. Now we move into something that sits right between investment and driving pleasure. The Porsche Cayman 987 is one of the last truly analog sports cars Porsche produced. It doesn't rely on excessive technology. It doesn't try to be overly complicated. Instead, it focuses on balance, mid-engine layout, precise handling, and a naturally aspirated flat-six engine. This is a driving experience that modern cars struggle to replicate. And that's exactly why people are starting to pay attention. Because as cars become more digital, analog cars become more valuable. From a reliability standpoint, the Cayman is generally solid, especially if it's been maintained properly. But it's important to be realistic. You may need to deal with IMS bearing concerns depending on the model year cooling system components, like the water, pump general, wear items typical for a performance car. But these are known issues. They are manageable, and when properly maintained, the The car is very rewarding to own. What makes the Cayman different from many other sports cars is usability. It's not just a weekend car. You can actually drive it regularly and still enjoy it without constant stress. And at the same time, it's already gaining recognition as a future classic. This is exactly the type of car that becomes significantly more expensive a few years down the line. 1. Toyota Land Cruiser. And finally, the most predictable and in many ways, the safest choice on this list, the Toyota Land Cruiser. This is not just a car, it's a global reputation built over decades. These vehicles are designed to operate in the harshest conditions, extreme heat, rough terrain, long distances without support. And because of that, they are built to a completely different standard. The engines in these cars are known for their durability. High mileage is not unusual. In fact, it's expected. And that reliability creates something very important: trust. People trust Land Cruisers. And when a vehicle has that level of trust worldwide, it creates constant demand. That demand is what protects its value. Unlike most cars that depreciate quickly, the Land Cruiser tends to hold its value extremely well and in some cases, even increase. Now, ownership is not without downsides. You will deal with higher fuel consumption, heavier maintenance costs compared to smaller car suspension wear over time. But these are predictable costs. What you don't deal with is constant failure. And that's the difference. This is one of the few vehicles you can buy, use for years, and still sell without losing significant money. In some cases, you might even make money. Conclusion. Right now, the smartest car investments are not about chasing the newest model or the most powerful engine. They're about understanding what people will value in the future: reliability, simplicity, and authenticity. Because those are the things that are slowly disappearing. Cars that last, cars that feel mechanical, cars that don't rely on complex systems to function. And when something becomes rare, becomes valuable. So if you choose the right car today, you're not just buying something to drive, you're buying something that makes sense financially and emotionally. And that combination is what creates a real investment.